Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Pottstown. Members, friends, guests, virtual people, people looking late at us later. We are all glad, we're so glad you're here today at our 55-year Young Fellowship, where we believe that every person matters. Diversity is a gift to be celebrated. And we come from different backgrounds and from different places, but we are all here because we have made the choice to make this fellowship our family for this morning. We vary from week to week from a variety of voices, not from lay leaders this week, because I think I've done almost all of them. You will agree, and some of these speakers you will agree with more than others. But we all hope in some little way or large way to touch your spirit, your heart, and your mind. So whoever you are, wherever you are, and whomever you love, I'm so glad to see you here today. If you haven't signed the guest register, it's out front somewhere. It will allow you to get the Sojourner, which is our newsletter that keeps you up to date on what's going on in the fellowship. And I think there's also a link out on the website. And of course, afterwards, everybody's invited back to the social hall for coffee, conversation, and munchies. To quote Justine, nobody's going to go hungry today. Apparently, there's quite a bit of food. So I'm Mary Ryan. I'm your service leader. Carly Shell is our pianist. Rick Dusky is doing the tech duties. Our guest minister is Kim Wilson. So I think I said who I was, but anyway, Mary Ryan. And now we are ready for announcements. So if anybody has an announcement about the UUFP, please come forward, make your announcement, and be careful. We have the handheld in there, and it's a little. Hopefully, it won't fall out.
Hello, Monica. I have a couple announcements. This Thursday is our women's group meeting from 7:30 to 8:30 if you're interested. We're selling stickers, bridal stickers for your car. They're $5 each. It's a fundraiser for the fellowship. So if you would like one, there's a sign-up sheet out on the right before the food line. So please participate in that. And my last one is next week we're having a very interactive kid-involved service for Easter. So if your kid is allergic to chocolate, let me know. And if you want something else for them instead of food, let me know. And I want to know how many people are coming. So thanks.
Hi, I'm Linda. Two announcements. The first of which is I will be placing an order this week for giant cards. For those of you who don't know, it's a nice little fundraiser for us at the fellowship. So let's just say you wanted to spend $100 in giant rather than go to giant and give them $100. You buy a $100 gift card from us. We only pay $95. So we get, it's a nice little steady stream of income. So if you do shop at Giant, please see me. The second is, and maybe if I can meet with the parents afterwards, I just want to talk about, our renters have done some beautiful things out back, that I know the children are enjoying. The challenge has been our children are enjoying it so much, they're not putting things back the way they're finding it. So I'd like to talk to the parents in terms of what can we put in place to make sure that at the end of each Sunday that things are back put in place for the renters. So thank you.
Okay. And now is the time for our chalice lighting. Let's see. Erica, she's standing up. I'll have Erica light the chalice. Our chalice lighting words this morning are by Cynthia Landrum. Mindful that with great power comes great responsibility. We light this chalice in the hopes that in brightest day and blackest night, our faith will flame on. Thank you. All right, Reverend Kim Wilson is joining us again this morning. for service, to lead our service. Reverend Kim graduated with a Master's of Divinity from Moravian Technological Cemetery. Mary Ellen did that too.
Correct, right?
Moravian, Moravian.
Yeah.
So you've heard it all before. You've even heard the cemetery, because I think Alan did that too. If we could graduate from the cemetery, would. So anyway, thank you, Reverend Kim. That's an interesting deal, I guess. So, welcome back, Kim.
Good to be back.
And for your your first Sunday service. And let's see. Okay, that's it. You've got the opening one.
Thank you, Mary.
For anybody who wants to know more about my CV, you can ask me after the service. Thank you for that introduction, Mary. It starts here, in this moment. In this breath you feel rising in your chest. This beat building between us. The healing, hunger, the hope, the courage, the calling, the commitment, the drawing out of a new day. It begins now in the imagination. In this story we weave together. This song we sing, this prayer we bring into being, from our hearts to our lips, from our hands to our life, our shared life. It starts here with praise and thanksgiving, and this promise we make to each other to keep learning, keep trying, to keep our sense of humor, to keep close this knowing that we are all in this together. So come, let us worship together. And let us now join in singing our opening hymn, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky, number 301 in your gray hymnals. I was surprised to find this one is not familiar to the congregation, but the choir has been practicing and they're going to help us lead it. It's not too challenging. I'm sure you'll get it.
Valerie is volunteered, I think I got the text at 9:15, so to do our children's minute. Everybody come forward, little kids, so everyone's gonna come up. And if you don't see the tweens here today, they're at a bar.
Wow. Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna hold it around.
Hey, guys. So yes, I realized this morning that Mr. B still didn't have a volunteer for this, for the children's message and RE. So I saw that Reverend Kim was going to be talking about commitment, and I thought about what does that mean to kids? Do you guys know what the word commitment means? Yes. Determined to do it. Yeah, anything else? That's okay, we're gonna talk about it in class later. But I picked a book that's one of my favorites. Ben Hackney is one of my favorite authors. I think his books are just beautiful. And to me, this book has more than one really beautiful examples of commitment. And I hope that you guys see it too. Right, listen. I think it only fits there. All right. So, we good? Yeah, there we go. Okay. This book is called Julia's House for Lost Creatures. by Ben Hackney. Julia's house came to town and settled by the sea. That evening, there was a warm fire and toast and tea, and all the house was quiet, too quiet. So Julia ran to her workshop, she got her tools and paints and went to work. She made a sign. She hung the sign up outside, outside the front door. It said, Julia's house for lost creatures. And then she waited. She didn't have to wait for long. Sketch, sketch. The sign worked. Patched up Kitty came to stay, and it was nice to have a friend, even if he wasn't like other kitties. Up the wall. But before long, there was another knock at the door. It went, and what does it say? Boo, boo, boo. It was a very sad troll. The city had torn down his bridge, and he asked if he could please stay, just until he could get back on his feet. Julia had just settled the troll into her best chair when there was another knock. There were also scrapes, scratches, whines, bangs, barks, and bellows. That's a lot of company. Soon Julia's house was filling up with lost and homeless creatures of every description. They asked for towels and soap, tea and toast. They had ideas of their own. They spilled things and they didn't clean up. Then the troll found Julia's old record player. "Stop!" shouted Julia. "Everybody stop!" The creatures stopped what they were doing and stood shuffling their guilty feet. Julia ran to her workshop and closed the door. She stayed in there for a long time.
Is that on the door?
The sign on the door says, "Do not disturb." What is she doing there? When she finally came out, Julia had a new sign. Now everyone had a job. That's chore chart. The dragon made the toast and the mermaid washed the dishes. The Paletti tended the fire, the goblins mopped up, the ghost was in charge of dusting, and the troll picked up the music. Best job. At last, there was a warm fire and tea and toast for everyone, and all the house was quiet again, except whoosh. So Julia got out of bed and made one more sign. She put it outside the door, and she waited. She didn't have to wait for long. The end. You can see the sign says, "Help wanted, repairs and jobs plumbing." And that's your show. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for listening.
Sing it till the night would go now in peace. Let's enter into a time of meditation. We'll begin with Spirit of Life. We can sing that and remain seated. Then we'll have about a minute of silent meditation, followed by the rest of our meditation period. Our meditation this morning comes from Teresa I. Soto. It's called Finding Our Dreams. This is a charm for hope. The first thing to do is tie a string around your finger. Remember, you are not alone. Think of the ways that our best shared futures are braided inextricably with your own present and your destiny. The second thing is to untie the string and let the knots and tightness fall away. Let the burden of bleakness roll off your sore shoulders. Resistance on these opaque horizons only requires one source of strength, one ray of light. Remember that persistence doesn't require all the answers up front, only one. Fortunately for all of us, we have one response: to remain together through awkward times and happy ones. We remember, we find our resolve in one another.
Thank you, Carly, that was lovely. Now time for the offering. It's when we pass the baskets and ask for a little treasure to help pay for the bills in our beautiful building here. So that was built by members and friends. So thank you very much. And John, everybody knows John, but John's our basket collector. He just volunteered one day. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for your generosity.
Our reading this morning is called Commitment. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Here's what he said, translated into English. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no one could have dreamt would have come your way. Whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. And along the theme of commitment, I invite you now to turn in your teal hymnals. I see some people are already ready with the Fire of Commitment. This may not be a familiar one, but yeah, the choir has been practicing it. And they are going to, I think we're going to invite them to come forward and help to lead it this morning. But again, you'll catch on to it quite quickly, I'm sure. You're gonna play an intro for us, Charlie, right there. I think we're all familiar with a certain stage of life, which is that time of early adolescence. It's that age when kids start wanting to be independent, but they're still actually very dependent on their parents and the other adults in their lives. There's a book title, which I think captures this internal struggle perfectly. And the title is, Get Out of My Life. But first, could you drive me and Cheryl to the mall? That book really helped me get through those early teenage years with my own two children. I remember one afternoon when I was at work in my office in the congregation in Madison, Connecticut, where I was serving at the time. My son Jamie was about 12, and he was at this stage. I think he's over it, kind of. He's 29 now. But anyway, he could argue and complain, and he could just go on and on. When he didn't get his way, he could be very persistent, you know? So anyway, he was visiting a friend, and he needed a ride home, and he wanted a ride like now, exactly. And I was like, well, you know, I'm sorry, I'm at work, I can't leave right now, you know, I can get you later, or maybe you can find a ride home, or, you know, you could walk the 2 miles. So I left it at that, even though he tried to argue with me, I stood firm. And later I did get home and saw that he'd gotten a ride home, but he was very upset with me for not coming to get him. Here it comes, I thought. He was outraged at the idea of walking home, saying, there wasn't even a sidewalk and I could have gotten hit by a truck and you wouldn't even care. He just glared at me. And you know, that first impulse was to argue back. But, you know, suddenly, despite all his anger and his blustering, suddenly my heart felt a pang, and I kind of saw through that outward display, inside him, this little boy who was feeling hurt and abandoned, and kind of scared. So instead of arguing with him, I thought, you know, this is an opportunity. I knew what I was going to say. The words just kind of came to me in my head. And I replied, Jamie, I want to tell you something. We were walking on a road together, and there was a truck coming, and I knew that I could push you out of the way, even though that truck would hit me instead. That's what I would do. Because that's how much I love you. It's hard to say it, you know? And Jamie just looked at me. He had nothing else to say, but I know he got the message. And, you know, there was a moment right after I heard those words in my head and before I said them out loud, when I had to ask myself, are these words true? You know, would I really do that? And I took a deep breath and I thought, yes, I would. I loved him so much. I would sacrifice my own life for him. And, you know, I'd do the same for my daughter too. And it kind of shocked me. That was the first time I really acknowledged the depth of my commitment to my children. And I think recognizing that commitment, it helped keep me going through some pretty rough times with 2 teenagers. And then thinking about that reading that we heard earlier, there were also other times when all sorts of things occurred to help me that never otherwise would have occurred without that commitment. In the midst of many difficulties, I can look back and see there were things that made the way easier because of that promise I made to myself. And that promise was to be the best parent that I could be for my kids. That's the kind of promise that all parents make. There are many kinds of commitments, many levels of commitment, whether it's to a relationship or family or work, cause, or an issue we believe in. It could be a project or a goal, a religion, ourselves. Most of us are committed to numerous people and a variety of things. We may have a whole range of different passions, things we care deeply about. Making commitments seems to be part of being human. Theologian Henry Nelson Wyman states, the direction and intensity of our loyalties give shape and meaning to our lives. Loyalties, commitments, covenants, the promises we make to one another. These are the things that tell us to what we belong. By doing so, they tell us who we are. To what do we commit ourselves? The philosophers and theologians caution that we will commit ourselves to something, whether it's worthy or not. If it's true that our strongest commitments tell us to what we belong and reveal who we are, we may want to pause now and then to reflect on where those commitments lie. Let's take just a moment to do that. I invite you to close your eyes. We may want to ask ourselves questions such as these. First of all, what are my primary commitments? And what are they based upon? Is it love or a deep sense of caring? Is it pride or moral obligation or something else? Is there anyone or anything I would lay down my life for? Do these commitments serve a positive purpose now? Do they add meaning to my life? Are they beneficial to me, to those around me, to the larger world? And finally, what keeps me going when things get tough? Those are some things to think about. You know, I've always admired and looked up to people who have focused on a singular passion throughout their lives and achieved something great. We've all heard of artists or musicians, scientists or religious leaders, writers, environmentalists, or social change agents and gifted people in many different walks of life who've made a commitment to one particular thing. Many times, the singular dedication of these individuals has rippled out to benefit the world. Maybe you're like me. I often find the stories of these people and their lives and their accomplishments to be very inspiring. Sometimes I feel in awe of what they've done. And frankly, in my weaker moments, I can end up feeling a little inadequate and questioning my own life choices. There are many examples that I could share of people who've made this kind of choice, but I'll share two of them here this morning. I recently listened to an audible version of the play Photograph 51 about Rosalind Franklin. She was a brilliant English chemist and an X-ray crystallographer whose work became central to the understanding of the molecular structure of DNA. As a woman scientist in 1951, she demanded that she be considered an equal among her male colleagues, Francis Crick and James Watson, and others in the lab. The reason for this, she wasn't so much a feminist, it really went beyond the principle of the thing, but she simply had to insist that there be nothing that distracted from or stood in the way of her doing her work. She had no interest or time for a romantic relationship, only taking the occasional break to go hiking, where she considered and contemplated the next steps in her quest to obtain a clear photograph of DNA to prove the hypothesis of the double helix. She was a relentless worker, even during her battle with cancer in 1958, cranking out important papers in between treatments. Perhaps she knew her time was short. She wanted to fulfill her commitment to advance scientific knowledge as much as she possibly could before her life was taken by the disease. In the play, Dr. Franklin says, "Every day I take a leap of faith that it'll all be worth it, that it will all ultimately mean something." I also think of Brian Stevenson. His name might be more familiar to you. I've seen his documentary. He's done a couple. This one was called True Justice. Anybody seen that? Well, Stevenson has devoted his entire life to racial justice, first as an attorney working to overturn wrongful convictions. And now he's created this legacy museum and national memorial for peace and justice in Montgomery, Alabama, which I had the opportunity to visit last year. It was quite powerful. So there he invites visitors to learn the truth about America's history of slavery and its aftermath. He's over 60 now, he's never married, and he basically has no outside life. And he's okay with that because he sees his work as so important to the healing of our nation. And he's committed to that healing. We are grateful to people like Bryan Stevenson and Rosalind Franklin. The world has a need for those individuals with singular passions that they devote themselves to. Yet, these people often do so at great sacrifice to the other areas of their lives. The world also needs the rest of us. We can look up to the great achievers for inspiration and encouragement in our times of weakness and doubt. But I do believe that to live a truly wholesome life, we need to have a balance of commitments. We need to have commitments to ourselves, to those we love and care about, and to the world around us. We need all three. People who are only focused on their own needs to the exclusion of others are not emotionally or spiritually happy, healthy, or happy, really. And ultimately, that's kind of a dead end. People who are completely dedicated, on the other hand, to say a spouse, their children, or an elderly parent, for example, without making an equal commitment to their own spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being, are out of balance and will suffer. The same is true of some social activists who devote themselves entirely to a cause without taking time out for self-care. These people can sometimes end up burning out, giving up, becoming bitter. Really, unless we make some kind of commitment to our own self-care and well-being, we are likely to suffer. There's a piece by poet Laura Mancuso I'd like to share with you. It's called Commitments to Myself. And she lists about 24 promises that she makes to herself. As you listen, you'll hear her commitments to self-care. You'll also hear her commitments to how she'll be in relationship with others and how she'll reach out to those in the wider world. She says, I take care of myself first because I am deserving of exquisite care. I take care of myself to maintain the capacity to help others. I move and stretch my body every day. I spend time in nature, attuning my senses to the earth's wisdom. I ration my daily exposure to the news. I pace myself. I sit with the reality of uncertainty and impermanence and allow it to temper my desire for control. I listen without judgment to others' reactions, which may be different from mine. I forgive myself and others when stress brings out our shadow selves. I feel fear fully when I am fearful. I experience sadness fully when I'm sad. I allow anger fully when I am angry. I relish joy fully when I'm joyful. I seek out healthy pleasures and indulge in them without guilt. I remind myself that feelings are transient states that move through me. They do not last, and they do not define me, nor do my thoughts. I balance my drive for self-improvement with compassionate acceptance of myself as I am right now. I initiate contact with loved ones to let them know I hold them in my heart. I seek out with increased sensitivity those who are the most vulnerable. If possible, I share my resources with those who need help to survive. When possible, I move away from people, situations, and experiences that do not serve my highest good. I strengthen my connection to my sources of spiritual strength so that I continue to be replenished. I acknowledge the nearness of death as a key motivator to living a full life. I pray for the suffering of all beings to cease. I grieve my losses and I celebrate my successes. I remain open to new ways of being, surprising sources of joy, and unanticipated discoveries every day. That's a lot of commitments. I hope some of those resonate with you as they do for me. And these commitments that we make to ourselves are the spring waters from which all the other commitments flow. And these are the ones that we make to the people in our lives and the ones that we make to the larger world and the causes that we care most about. And then there is another kind of commitment, one that serves as a kind of container for all the others. And that is a commitment to faith. At its most basic, it is faith that there is always reason to hope. It's faith in humanity and in the spirit of life. It's faith that extends to the earth and its life-sustaining qualities, its natural laws and rhythms, and ultimately to the universe. We know that a deep and abiding faith will carry us through just about anything. And when we gather with other people of faith in a religious community such as this, we help each other to practice and strengthen that faith. We help each other to recognize, identify, honor those commitments we make to ourselves, to each other, and to the world. We find our resolve in one another. This is our faith community. In this place of faith, let us commit ourselves fully to it for the sake of ourselves, for the people we love and care about, and for the world. May it be so. Let's join in singing our closing hymn, Faith of the Larger Liberty, number 287 in your great hymnals. We have unison closing words, and we'll close our online service after that. So if you look in your order of service, let's join together. Go out into the world in peace, have courage. Hold on, it's good. Help first evil, evil. Strengthen, faint hearted. Believe, help the soul. Honor all beings. So we're going to change the order a little bit today. We're going to go right into joys and concerns. And we'll listen to Carly's postlude, and then we'll have our chalice extinguishing. So now. Let's join in saying our unison chalice extinguishing. We extinguish our chalice of flame, but not the light of wisdom, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and in our hands until we are together again.